So it's very important that you watch these videos, one after another now that I know what God wants me to do and how He wants me to do it. And plus, He left this at the opportune time to change this over. And like I said, I've done this once before with God, and it didn't go so well the first time. There was a lot of hiccups, a lot of, we had to do some reworks, and that's where we're at now. We got to the reworks and we're going. But I want to show you this picture. This is from the Library Network and Marmot. Those are cool animals. If you ever get a chance to see one, they're unique. They're up in the high country when you get up to the lakes, and yeah, just God's creation. Okay, so this picture is of Salida, 1883. Now I've gone in and I've pointed out when Salida had two fires in my other videos, and like I said, there's so much information to cover on this. But they had two fires. I believe it was in 1883 and 1886. In 86, they declared that the whole town was going to be built out of brick. And I'm going to show you where there was no fires. And you're going to have to follow this video. I know it's going to be a long, long video because how do I know who I'm reaching, what I'm reaching, what do I need to tell them? Because this is crucial to our existence now, what we move forward with. Are we going to go with truth, or are we going to go with Fantasyland? And I'll show you what Fantasyland is. So I've lived in Colorado my entire life. I've moved around, but my most of my life has been in Colorado. I'd say about 80% Colorado and then 20% out in the United States somewhere. And so what I want to tell you guys is how they do stuff like this. They try to make themselves seem really smart by pronouncing it Salide. And what I'm going to tell you is that back before this all started, this was a town called South Arkansas. And then if you go through your history, you're going to understand that they had borders, and the Arkansas was a national border. And when you understand our history and know what's taken place with all the different people that have basically ran the United States before it was the United States, why it was a territorial, and even before it was a territory, you have to think about that. So let me play this video because I want you guys to understand. Here's a picture of Salida. I'm going to go through a couple of these, and I'm going to go down and show you the tower of what they built in Salida. So you have to think about bricks. Like, how did they get them to Salida before the train? So they couldn't. 1883. This is the picture. Let's blow this up so you guys can see this. Okay, so this is of Salida. This is the Monte Cristo, I believe. And I want you to look at these are the original buildings from Salida. And if you come over here, which you can't on this photograph, sorry about that. I was like, yeah, it'll just keep going over, and that's not it. This train station that they built in 1880, because the train came in 1880, and this is supposed to be 1883. This is finished in 1883. I don't know when they started construction on this. But I want you to follow the timeline with all the trees and the construction and look through all of these photographs with detailed eyes and go back several times. And I'm going to show you where this doghouse on top of the Salida train depot is. Yeah, we'll show that through the videos, and I'll show you how that actually is been changed, and it'll help you understand our history. So one of the other things was is I went through and all of this I went through. So this one is supposed to be of Salida in 1882. This is on the Denver Library. And like I said, they did this different. Let's see if this will do it. Yeah. Okay, so if you look in, you can see the doghouse has been put in. You can see that there is housing right here. And let me draw it out just to make sure that you guys are. Okay, so we got housing right here. We got the doghouse right here. So I'm assuming the train tracks came in through here. But we also have a main run coming through here. So the other thing is look at the buildings, and like I said, those original on the other side, this building with the other ones are the original buildings. Watch as buildings come and go, watch as trees come and go, and you're gonna understand the timeline. You're gonna understand that. So we're working with basically 20 years, okay? And that's where this will absolutely yeah, this should put any doubt to anyone that we've had a reset somewhere and somebody's changed something. And the one thing that most people are going to be like, well, how do you know? I'm like, well, why would you change all of our history? Why would you doctor photographs on the actual historical websites? And why change a lot of cities in Colorado? Because a lot of cities been changed. Even Denver. I read somewhere where it was shortened to Denver, and I was like, wait, shortened to Denver? Like what was it, Denverina or something? I was like, yeah, when you make this up, you have to look for what they made up, and once you see it, like it's a gateway. You'll start to see how they've done all of this. And so this smokestack, let's look at this real quick. And while I play the video, we'll look at it in Salida, and we'll just kind of take a look, and I'll show you this train where we're at here. So let me play this, and then we'll go from there.
Once you have that rich a strike, it's only valuable if you can ship the ore. So now you need roads. So the competition really is between the business communities of Silverton and Murray as to who is going to be able to connect to the mines first. The business people in both communities want the same thing, but they want it at the same time. So in order to level a slice of the mountain and turn it into a flat surface, it's an enormous amount of drilling and rock removal. And in the 1920s, there are some machines that'll do that, but nothing like we have today. So you're dealing with very dangerous explosions of blasts using dynamite. Like when Otto Mears is making trails, which become roads, dynamite is just about to be used. It doesn't even have the name dynamite. It's called giant powder, and it's highly explosive. And you have to blast shells. So if you've got a steep mountain and you're trying to make a road, you have to turn that 45-degree angle into a flat angle, and you have to move tons and tons of rock.
Spain and Mexico governed this area. It was finally turned over to the United States in 1848. 1868, pressure had grown to compel the Utes to yield mining lands to the U.S.
But then as a young man, the Civil War broke out, and he joined the Union Army. And it was via the Union Army that came back towards Colorado and New Mexico.
Went into the gold fields, discovered something very, very important. He discovered that the people who make money out of mining are very often not the mine owners, because the mines often didn't pan out. People who really made out were the people that supplied the machinery, who supplied the food, who supplied the equipment that they used.
There has always been a struggle in the 19th century over whether we would have a gold standard or a silver standard. And the politicians that decide in the 1890s, no, let's switch to a gold standard, immediately devaluing all the silver mines.
And when that happened, the price of silver dropped from $1.50 an ounce to 50 cents an ounce almost overnight.
Red Mountain was a silver camp, and overnight the camps are abandoned, plates are left on tables, people just simply walk out because the value of their mineral has really fallen.
It kind of all came together at the same time.
The steel industry really did change the face of Pueblo. It also created the opportunity for all of the individuals to come from all over the world.
The ethnic diversity of Pueblo was evident in the fact that 40 languages were spoken by employees at the steel mill, and more than 24 foreign language newspapers were published in the city.
If you think about the historical timeline for this, the First World War is from 1914 to 1918. The Spanish flu pandemic, which hit Pueblo particularly hard, was 1918. The flood was 1921. In 1929, they had the Great Depression, and in 1931, they had the Dust Bowl.
It wasn't until after the Spanish arrived in 1540 that anyone was interested in exploring for gold here. Some Spaniards made their way north from New Mexico into the San Juans. but this was an area that was declared off limits by their own government.
There are no records. There are no really written accounts of the Spanish miners on purpose. So they did not want anyone in Santa Fe or Taos or Abiquiu to know they were up here. But all our place names, you know, the Piedras, the Platas, the San Juans, those are all Spanish names. The Spanish were here, but they purposely didn't keep records because if they found something, they wanted to bring it as gold bullion to the settlements themselves, and they didn't want anybody to know where their mines were.
So that just gives you an insight of what it actually takes to do roads, and then also with the silver crash. And so when you look through history, you're gonna find like the silver serpents, and you're also gonna start finding huge names like J.P. Morgan and so forth that have taken these companies and they basically did the conglomerate, and that's what the progressive era was over. Was reform on government and people of the robber barons that were destroying and pillaging America. And the people of the world had had enough of it. But it was short-lived because they took it to the extreme. Instead of fighting for their country and trying to get something going, all chaos was leashed on them with World War, pandemics, so forth. And by the 1920s, you have to understand how much history could have been changed just through that time period. Not even including World War One. And so when you look at all of this stuff, you have to understand that. You have to take all of that into account. And you know, if you don't, then it's your loss. You're the one missing out on this. But it's your choice. You know, God has given you life or death before you. If you choose life, then, you know, but if you choose death, you know, there's no reward for death. And unfortunately, there's so much hate in our world, and Satan is fed off of that. And and I hate to say it, the people of the world, you know, the people have fed off of the violence. Because if you look at World War One, World War II, Vietnam, and there's a TV show called Outlander. You should watch that and see the violence that is on that. That has not went away. And when you find out that this was done to children, will you change? Will you help change the world for the better? Many people come into fame and fortune is because they want to be accepted by Lucifer. And when you read through all of this stuff, like I said, you know, the history on Colorado becoming a state capital, and every town, like I said, when you understand what you're looking for, you're going to see these numbers are absolute just, they're made up, they're fictional. And they're designed to confuse you, and they're put in order in a certain way, so that way you are confused when you read it. And for whatever reason, God always made me dyslexia, so I was never, when I started understanding what God was showing me, I could easily start to pick some of this apart. Now it's taken a lot for me to go through all of this stuff I've gone through and done the history, the research, you know, all of it, origins, where everything is, Salida, you know, what happened, when they got their electricals. So these are all things you need to watch and understand.